Good morning. This is video 17. This is the Ruth chapter 4 verses 13 through 22. This is at the end of the book of Ruth. Boaz is going to marry Ruth. He has purchased the land. He's made everything legal. And so I remember last time he went to the town gate, he asked the kinsman redeemer if he would buy it. He said no, because it's going to mess up my inheritance to my children. So Boaz makes the town as a witness. Verse 11, the town is a witness, and the town says, "May you be blessed." And so we're picking up in chapter 4, verse 13. So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife. Then he went in to her, and the Lord enabled her to conceive, and she gave birth to a son. The women said to Naomi, "Praise be to the Lord, who this day has not left you without a kinsman redeemer. May he become famous throughout Israel. He will renew your life and sustain you in your old age. For your daughter-in-law, who loves you and who is better to you than 7 sons, has given him birth." Then Naomi took the child and laid him on her lap and cared for him. And the women living there said, "Naomi has a son." And they named him Obed, and he was father of Jesse, the father of David. Now, we don't hear any more from Boaz. We don't hear any more from Ruth after this. Some say that Boaz died immediately after making love with Ruth on the first night to get her pregnant. We don't know. That's just some suggestions. We actually do not know. It's not told us here in Scripture. It's not told anywhere else. Okay? So Boaz took Ruth and she became his wife. We don't know how long it took for her to get pregnant. We don't know how long they lived together before he died. We know that he was about 80. Okay? It says, then he went in to her, and the Lord enabled her to conceive, and she gave birth to a son. Now we know that the next verse there, verse 14, is at least bare minimum of 9 months. We know that Ruth lived another 9 months. Some say that both Boaz and Ruth died, that Ruth died giving birth. Boaz died right after making love. We don't know. Okay? But this is what we do know. That when the child is born, he's not Boaz's child. He's Machlon's child. He's a descendant of Elimelech, because that's what the whole thing was about, was to keep Machlon alive. Go back to chapter 4, verse 10. I have also acquired Ruth the Moabitess, Machlon's widow, as my wife, in order to maintain the name of the dead with his property, so that his name will not disappear from among his family or from the town records. Today you are my witnesses. So it's not Boaz's son, it's Machlon's son, so that his name will not be blotted out. Okay, so Now we have the women said, verse 14, the women said to Naomi, "Praise be to the Lord, who this day has not left you without a kinsman redeemer." So at least we know that the kinsman redeemer did his part in buying the land and taking Ruth as a wife. May he become famous throughout Israel. Who? The baby or the kinsman redeemer? The kinsman redeemer. He will renew your life and sustain you in your old age. For your daughter-in-law, who loves you and is better to you than 7 sons, has given him birth. Who? Him who? Him the son, Machlon, son of Machlon. Then Naomi took the child, laid her in his lap, and cared for him. Some say this indicates that both Ruth and Boaz had died, and that this baby Obed Naomi took care of him. Naomi had a son, and they named him Obed, and he was the father of Jesse, the father of David. Now let's look on to verse 18 here. This then is the family line of Perez. Perez was the father of Hezron, Hezron the father of Ram, Ram the father of Amminadab, Amminadab the father of Nashon, Nashon the father of Salmon, Salmon the father of Boaz, Boaz the father of Obed, Obed the father of Jesse, and Jesse the father of David. And this David is later known as King David, the second king of all of Israel. The first king, you remember, was Saul, but the second king was the king that God chose, not the people. The people chose Saul. And so now we have the story. We know all about why Ruth and they came back with Naomi. She said, "I'll go back with you. I have nothing here in Moab. I'll go back with you." And so she becomes, and then if you turn all the way over to the book of Matthew in the New Testament, go to the book of Matthew. Go to chapter 1 in the book of Matthew. We have the same beginning in verse 4, last part of verse 3, chapter 1, Perez, the father of Hezron, Hezron, the father of Ram, Ram, the father of Amminadab, Amminadab, the father of Nashon, the father of Salmon, Salmon, the father of Boaz, Salmon, the father of Boaz, whose mother was Rahab, Boaz, the father of Obed, whose mother was Ruth, Obed, the father of Jesse, Jesse, the father of King David. Now, that's exactly the same that I just read at the end of chapter 4 in the book of Ruth. Now look at this. If you read through all the rest of these descendants, and it tells you who they all are, we get all the way down to verse 16. Jacob, the father of Joseph, the husband of Mary, of whom was born Jesus, who is called the Christ. So we have a Moabitess, Ruth, in the descendancy not the descendancy, but in the ancestry of Jesus. We also have Rahab the harlot in here. She was the hotel keeper that saved the spies. We have people that are outside of Israel in the lineage of Jesus, which is very important. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed our study of Ruth. We'll come out with some more, with another study before too long. Thank you.